Okay, so today I'm going to be showing you how I tie, the Pat's rubber legs variation I use for most of my Euro nymphing. 90% of the time I'm tightline nymphing, I'm using this fly as one of my flies. I'm using my anchor fly. So I typically like to tie them on inverting beads, but just for tying and showing you how to tie it's sake, I'm just going to be using a 3/16 tungsten black nickel bead. And the hook is a Firehole 718 size 10. You can tie them from a size, I typically don't go any smaller than a 14. You can tie them up to a size 4. And for the thread, I'm just using some 6/0 black Uni-Thread. And so to start it off, move your bead all the way to the back, and this is going to be the most pain in the ass part of it. You're basically be counting wraps here. So you want to start right at the eye. You want to go 3 wraps back, 3 wraps forward, cut your tag end, and then you're going to take your legs, and this is going to be your antennae. So the legs I'm going to be using are going to be Sili legs and barred pumpkin with a little bit of flash in them. And this is going to be how you're going to be getting like basically the only flash you can in this fly without using sparkly or any flashy chenille. So what I like to do is I could take my legs and then have 2 strands of equal lengths, just like that. Then at the tip, they're connected via just a part of the very thick base right here. And what this will do is it'll allow you to do your antennae in your legs a lot faster and a lot better. So you're just going to be taking them, since they're the same length, and you're going to put them to the eye of the hook where your thread is. You can measure it to whatever you want, however far forward you want your antennae to be. And then you're just going to do a loose wrap. You just get my thread in there, a loose wrap right against the eye. You're going to pull down a little bit while taking out a little bit more thread, and do another wrap over. You're going to adjust your antennae, hold them down with your thumbs, and pull down to secure them. Then you're going to take your tag end here, going to cut it, and then to go over those tag ends, that's going to be your whip finish. Now you want about 3 turn whip finishes, all you really need. So I'm just going to whip finish over the little tag ends I cut off there, and then pull that tight, cut it off, and you can see how it looks right there. Just gonna push your bead over, and there's the antennae done. So then you're just gonna start your thread behind, and just gonna make a quick thread body. And when you get to where it really starts to dramatically curve down, that's when you're gonna stop. So you're just gonna make a quick little thread base, and when you get to that part, you'll stop. You're gonna take the same pieces used for the antennae for the legs, and you're gonna use them as the tail. So you're gonna put them against the hook again, hold them, and you're gonna do again loose or a pinch wrap. For this one I'm using a pinch wrap. 1 pinch wrap, pull tight, another one tight, then wrap in front once. And that wrap in front really just holds the thread down and keeps it from slipping and undoing all of your stuff. And wrap over the tag ends instead of whip finishing over them. You can adjust your legs however you want, so you don't need it to be perfect. I mean, to the fisher won't really matter. It's more of what you like to see. So now what you're going to be doing is you're going to take some I'm using 0.015 lead wire. You can also use lead free wire. All this is doing isn't really adding any weight to it. This is really only for taper. So you're gonna start it about midway through, and what you're gonna do is you're just gonna wrap all the way to the bead. After you wrapped all the way to the bead, just make a few wraps behind your lead to compress it so it won't all go everywhere. And then you're gonna do some wraps over your lead that way and this way, so it'll make crisscrosses with your threads, or with your thread, and then you can just, oh, that's a lot of thread out. Then what you can do is just go over it if you want to, and just get a nice little thread base over that. It's not required, but I personally like to do it. So after you do that, you can make a little bit of taper, like a carrot shape like you do for most nymphs, but it's not really required for this fly. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take, I'm using Variegated Chenille in black and coffee. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna take the end, you're gonna strip a little bit of the chenille off. So you can see I have a little bit of the core, I call it. You can also call it tag end. Instead of tying over the chenille, you're gonna tie over the core, and what this will do is it will prevent bulk from coming up. It'll create a better taper for the fly. It'll also be easier to just make the fly clean. So you can just secure that, bring your thread to about the midpoint, maybe, well, I like to bring it to where the lead starts. Then what you're gonna do with this is you're gonna make your wraps, but you don't wanna make, you wanna make touching wraps, but you don't want your touching wraps to be with the fuzz of the chenille like this. You want your cores to be touching when you're wrapping, and you'll see why in a second. It's gonna be for shaping. So you're just gonna wrap that all the way to where your thread is. And easiest way to make those really touching wraps is just to pull back all the fuzzy stuff and then put the core against the other one. So when you get to your thread, you're just gonna do 2 wraps over it, and then 2 wraps in front, and then just going to move the chenille back and have it hold in place. And now you're going to get some more legs. You're not going to be using the same piece you used for the legs and the antennae. Keep that separate. Just going to take another little piece of this. You don't want them too long, maybe about an inch, inch and a half each. I'm going to trim it anyway. So then, easiest way I find to put on the legs is to put it under the thread and then pull over. Just like this, and then with these fingers you pull down and that'll secure it. Make one more wrap over the legs. You're going to do that the same thing with the other side. So you can see here, it's probably easier for you guys to see on this side. You just pull it over, pull tight, make another wrap over. Then what you want to do is you don't want to wrap the chenille through them now. You're gonna make a little bit of space actually in between them. You're gonna make a few wraps to separate the legs, and this will actually put the legs in a better position than they would be if you just wrap the chenille over. So you can see, made a little bit of a gap with the thread in between, pull the legs back, and then wrap forward up to the bead. So now this is where you can continue wrapping your chenille. Again, you want to make those touching core wraps, so do that. You want to leave enough space for about 2 chenille wraps in between the legs. You're going to pull the legs back over the top. This is easiest I find. Even though they're sticking up, at the end you're going to be able to adjust them and pull them down just like that. So now you just keep going up to the bead. You want to make one wrap probably inside the bead. What this will do is it'll just keep it tight. Nice and tight. And then I'm just going to capture it with 2 wraps, pull down, wrap it in front of it twice so it doesn't escape, cut the chenille off, and then you can make some cleanup wraps, getting the tag end of the chenille. Then you're just gonna do your whip finishes. So then you're done with your whip finishes, you can just cut the thread, and then we'll apply the glue last. So what you're going to do is then you can measure and trim all of your antennae and your legs and all that to however you like it. I personally like my legs and antennae relatively short and my tail relatively short because if you look at stoneflies, this is what this is primarily imitating. They don't really have long legs. So to me, that looks about good. Now, what you're going to do is, this is the trimming part. So the last part, this is really the only difference between the regular Pat's rubber legs and the one I like to use. I like to give it a little bit of taper and shape. So what you're going to do first is you're going to make cuts just like against the core almost, and you're just going to trim all that fuzz off of the top. You want to use some sharp scissors for this thing. And be really careful not to cut off your legs, because then you'll have to start all over. Again, you just want to trim off all that fuzz off the top. And then you're going to do the same thing for the bottom, just trim off all the fuzz. And this is why you did the touching core wraps, because you wouldn't be able to shape it well if you didn't do that, if you didn't have enough chenille. So, just make a few more cuts here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to taper it. So you want to be really careful. You want to pull the legs back to the side you're going to be trimming, and you make a cut, diagonal cut to the tail. So you want to make a cut along there. So just pull it back, make my cut. You can see there, just a little bit of taper. Same thing for the other side. And then you can just round it off because they don't have square body parts, they have round body parts, so you can just cut all the corners. Trim off the back fuzz here, which is kind of hard to get. So there's stonefly taper and everything. Now this is where the lead wire or the lead free wire come in handy. You're going to want to take a pair of pliers and you're just going to squish it down, and that'll flatten it even more. I mean, if you look at a golden stonefly, which is basically what this is imitating because of the colors and the size of it really, I mean, they're flat. They're really, really, really flat. So you're just going to take it and you're just going to pinch down along the body to just flatten everything out. And then just adjust your legs a little bit. And then after you do that, it will make it a bit more square. So go ahead and round off those corners again, tapering back. Just do a full 360, making sure everything's good. And then just apply any glue, head cement, Z-ment, really anything. I'm using Z-ment right now, just what I like to use for a lot of my gluing purposes. Just gonna apply it right over the finished thread wraps. And there you go. There's a relatively realistic, easy to tie stonefly pattern, which should be able to get through probably one in 5-6 minutes. And I mean, this is my favorite nymph of all time. This has produced more fish on nymphs than any other fly that I've tied. The only fly that comes close to this is a sexy waltz, but even then, this is more versatile in terms of water bodies you can use. I mean, that stoneflies are everywhere. I even use this in places where there are barely any stoneflies and fish still hit it. It's just a meaty, protein-filled meal that is easy pickings for the fish. And for those picky fish, flattening out the body and tapering out the tail is actually going to come in handy when it comes to fish examining it. If they do that in your water bodies, I know they do here, where every fish has a PhD. But yeah, this is easily my most productive nymph and easiest to tie of all the stonefly nymphs I tie. So there you go.